All right, we're live again. So whenever you're ready to record, Matt.
All right. Three, two.
All right, guys, we got another special treat on. We have the head coach, Cliff Ellis, on, former Auburn head coach. He's just retired this week, and I'm going to read some accolades real quick before we start talking to him, just so you know who we're talking to, the legend that we're talking to. He has 909 wins in college basketball. He was the active win leader in all divisions in college basketball before he retired 5 days ago. Ninth all time in D1 wins. Ninth all time in D1 wins. Only coach to ever coach or win 170 plus games at 4 different schools. Six-time conference coach of the year, including 2 at Auburn, 10 NCAA appearances, 3 Sweet 16s, national coach of the year in 1999 at Auburn, and the second winningest coach ever in Auburn history. Welcome to the podcast, Coach Cliff Ellis.
Well, it's good to be with some good Auburn people.
Yeah, so you were just at Coastal Carolina for the last 15 years, and just in the last week, you've retired. Talk us through how that came to be, and congratulations.
Well, I was going to retire at the end of the year. I turned 78 this year, and the game has changed. I think today there's so much involved with the transfer portal, NIL, and if you're at Auburn or Clemson, Power Five schools where I coached, you can stay in the game. But we basically, we're struggling with NIL money, and players were coming and going, and it's just time. The state, it was too difficult, and 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 maybe do something else. So look at the next step, so to speak. So I decided to do it last week because I wanted my coaches to be able to have the opportunity to get the job and show what they can do. And so I said, hey, I don't need 15 or 20 more wins or whatever. Let them have a shot at it. Go ahead and shut the door on this thing.
Well, you'd already set all those records we just said, so you're right about that, and you're not alone for, a lot of other legendary head coaches have retired in the last couple of years. It feels like the changes are just light speed. And I know Matt has a question about
Yeah.
it's been a long time coming. He's got a question about your very, very beginnings.
Yeah. So, Coach, I live in
Okay.
Lebanon, Tennessee. So I'm very familiar
Uh,
with
uh, you, well, how about that? You
University.
lived there?
What'd you say?
You lived in Lebanon?
I do right now. I live in between Lebanon and Mount Juliet, Tennessee. So, I
Wow.
honestly,
My wife taught at Mount Juliet. Yep.
We're having some technical difficulties, but it was better. It's better than it was before we started recording. So we're just going to push through, and I think we're getting a lot of clear answers half the time. But it sounds like his wife used to live in Mount Juliet.
yes, yes, that's what I got. So, um, I grew up an Auburn fan and, obviously followed your teams really closely, but I had no idea about your time at Cumberland. And I saw that you,
I taught at Mount Juliet. You know,
oh, you
the
did?
court, the court is named after me there.
Yes, I was going to mention that. And you had a 78-12 record, and you were the AD, and you were the basketball coach. So was the connection your wife being from there, or how did that come to be? How did you?
No, no, I went to graduate school at Middle Tennessee State University, and the job came open, and the basketball coach at Middle Tennessee at the time, Jimmy Earl, recommended me for the job, and I was able to get it. So I owe him a lot. Dr. Ernest Stockton was the president. He gave me the opportunity, and I really loved those times. We had great teams, and it propelled me to Division I basketball. The next step was South Alabama, and then of course Clemson, followed by Auburn, and then Coastal Carolina.
You've stayed in the Southeast your whole career. Was that by choice to be close to family? Was that just the opportunities that came on your path?
I think it was more opportunities that came my way. I'm a Southern guy. I was raised in Florida, and I like. I was raised in Florida near the Gulf of Mexico, so I do like a warmer climate. So I think I am more suited for that.
your career, like you said, I think maybe some of the changes in college sports over the last couple of years that maybe forced or pushed you towards retirement here is how the sport used to be more regional. It used to be more about the people you knew. You bounced around in the South because you probably met these different people, played against them. Now we have these conferences that are nationwide. It's, the same regional rivalries. They're gone. You have this California all the way to the East Coast, back and forth. I don't know if you want to talk about any of these conference changes.
Well, I mean, that's where the game is going. But, you know, the Atlantic Coast Conference, when you got Stanford and those schools in your Atlantic Coast, I think that's Pacific Coast. So it's kind of strange to me. And then you got the Southeastern Conference, and now you got Oklahoma and Texas. It's crazy, but it's all about the money. Television is driving everything. And, the game's headed to the power conferences, and they'll be the juggernauts. It's probably going to be 4 or 5 leagues that are going to be competing, and that's it. The sad thing to me about it is, college basketball has really been centered around the Dukies and the Kansas, Kentucky, but they love the Cinderellas. They like the silver slipper. They like to see look at what Gonzaga's done. They were a Cinderella team. They like to see what a Butler has done, and it just makes March Madness what it is. And, if you just keep it to 4 or 5 different leagues, I think it hurts the game. But money drives everything, and there's big money out there. Television, I saw somewhere where one conference is going to make
Sorry if we run you over a bit on some of the questions, because you do break up every once in a while, but we heard most of that. My next thing I was going to ask, with the speed of change of the game, and how big money it is and everything like you're talking about, coaches just don't get the same leash that they used to. They don't get those several years to pick a program back up. They have 2 or 3 years, and now with transfer portal, man, 1 or 2 years, if you didn't get your people out of the transfer portal and come back, it's a big deal. You spent a long time at each one of your schools. Coastal Carolina, 15 years, Auburn, 10 years. I believe Clemson and South Alabama, you were there for a decade each also for those. You've really had a lot of longevity.
Right.
How did you stay at those schools for so long?
Well, you got to win for one thing. That's for sure. But you have to sustain it. And, sooner or later, the programs I took were not the Dukes and the Kentuckys and the Kansases in basketball. I like building. I really like to build programs. And the programs I took at the time that I took them, you have one hand tied behind your back, so to speak, and it was very difficult. But we made the point to take them and get them to rise to champions. Now, once you get them to be a champion, nobody ever wants to look back. And I know from 99 to 04, we took the job 95, 96. In 99, we won the SEC championship. And from 99 to 04, we won the SEC. We were runner-up. We went to the NCAA 3 of those years. We went to Sweet 16 twice. Then we had we had a player that broke his leg. We only went 500, and there was some discontent among certain people to make sure that we kept it going, and wanted me to fire staff members, and I didn't do it, so we just decided to move on. But your fans deserve to have the best, but at the same point in time, it's hard. I think what Bruce is doing is amazing. I mean, he's sustaining it right now. And I do think that the game has changed with the NIL and transfer portal. I think he's a pro at it. And, he's got all the things that you need. He's a very good basketball coach. He understands the portal and the NIL. And as long as Auburn has the wherewithal, I think they'll stay at the top.
Well, I believe you won the SEC Coach of the Year at Auburn in 1995, and you made the NIT tournament that year. Do you think you would have won that same award a couple years after that 98 team? Those expectations just change. They forget what you did to start the program.
Well, expectations change. But, we developed in 99, and I'm going to make this statement. I think it's the best team that that Auburn basketball has ever had. And I'm going to tell you why. Go back and look and pull up the average win. It was, first of all, it was the number one seed in the NCAA tournament. And when you look at that, I think we were a team that was 26 or 27-2 in the regular season. And a number one seed, that's in a tournament like the NCAA or the conference tournament, you can get hot and something can happen. But to do it the entire season, that team did it the entire season. And you go back, and I think we beat Alabama that year 3 times by 39, 31, and 15. And then you go and look at the wins and the margin of victory. And I was taken back by it because somebody pointed it out to me years ago, said the average win of that Auburn team was like 18 or 19 points a game. You think about that in a league that's got Kentucky, Arkansas, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, LSU, winning by an average of 18 or 19 points. It's unheard of. That team will stack, and this is the 25th year or 25th anniversary of that team. And
has anybody contacted you from the Auburn basketball? You know, we've been pushing it on the podcast. 25th year anniversary. We need a throwback uniform game. We need those guys back in town. Do you think you'll be back in town for any games to honor that team?
Well, I would think that Auburn should. Now, whether they do or not is not my call. But once again, I don't think there's ever been a better basketball team as per the results.
Yes.
Now, there's been bigger wins, and there's been things that have happened, over the years with regards to what was done. Sonny had some great teams. Bruce took a team to the Final Eight. But for a regular season, no doubt in my mind that team is the best that Auburn has ever had because it dominated teams. Dominated. It wasn't 2-point win here, 2-point. I haven't done the math, but 18 or 19 points a win on the average win is amazing. But you had guys like Mamadou Ndiaye, 7-footer, played with the Raptors. Chris Porter played with Golden State. Brian Smith, who's on Bruce's staff. Damian Fishback, who's doing television now. Doc Robinson, who played overseas. Scotty Pullman, Reggie Sharp, Adrian Chilius, Dave Smith. And I didn't name all of them, but that was a special group. And
Coach, did you know before the season like what you had, or how much did that catch you by surprise? The undefeated start and the dominance, and then the press that you guys implemented that just seemed to really give teams feet.
It was a choking press. I mean, it really choked people down, but we had the athletes, we had the basketball IQ, we had everything from a chemistry standpoint that you need to be able to win, and they believed in the press and what they did. It was just a fantastic group, and
is there a moment
those memories should never be forgotten?
Is there a moment you had during that season that really sticks out? That was your moment where you're like, man, I got something special. That what they just did was your trigger moment. No, I got something here.
Well, I think early in the season we were showing that, with our games, and the confidence just kept building. And then when we got into the conference and won those first 2 or 3 games, it was Katie bar the door. I mean, I can remember being as relaxed on a bench as I've ever been. I mean, in the second half, if we weren't up by 20, it was somewhat of a surprise. And you just sat there, and I remember we had like 6,000 cliff dwellers, and they'd pull out the keys and they'd jingle the keys with about 10 or 12 minutes, and they wanted certain players in, and it was just a special time. But we had 6,000 cliff dwellers at one time, and that at that time it was unheard of. I see you look at there. Look at that. Pull it up there. Let me see that.
I'm so glad you brought up the Cliff Dwellers because I have the Cliff Dweller shirt. I bet you hadn't seen one of these in a while.
It's been a long time. It's been a
Oh
long time.
yeah,
It's been a
that's
long,
that
long
might be
time.
my favorite. I have a Bruce Pearl signed Auburn basketball like court over here, but this might be my favorite Auburn basketball thing I own for sure.
And it still looks good. I mean,
Yeah,
it,
yeah. I
it,
treat
it
it
worked.
right. I treat it right.
It
only
worked.
only wear it for
It,
special occasions.
it worked. It worked. It worked. Special time.
Now
Special time.
when you won the SEC that year, got that #1 seed, Auburn was down for so many years before you got there. You won the first SEC championship Auburn had won in 40 years. Did that
Yeah,
feel like in the moment, like you had taken this program back? Did you feel like you had hit that goal that you wanted?
absolutely. I mean, it was a major mark because previously at Clemson, the SEC, you're reaching a mark that you can be proud of, and it hadn't been done since Joel Eves, and it was just a special moment. We played Vanderbilt for the regular season title. I think we won that game by 19 or 20. I don't know, but I remember the fans storming the court. I remember cutting the nets down. That was a special time and a special moment.
I got to say, we really appreciate as Auburn basketball fans. Before Bruce got here and took us back, even early Bruce days, if you wanted to get excited about an Auburn basketball game, if you wanted to get hyped up, if you wanted anything to throw at other fans, you had to go back to that 98-99 team. I've watched the Flying Tiger highlights so
Yeah,
many times against Ole Miss because that was the only good times we had on video for a really good time. I know we had Charles Barkley. I know Sonny Smith did some great things, but that was the best highlights I could find. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And then I also wanted to say, same with Bruce Pearl. He's had to bring the program back a bit from some depths that have happened post after you left. But what does it feel like, nationally, people want to talk about the national championships. They want to talk about some coach that wins National Coach of the Year for, taking Kentucky to national championship when they do that all the time. But you took a program that hadn't done anything in 40 years to a #1 seed. Do people in the coaching ranks, do they at least understand how big of a deal that is?
oh yeah, yeah, they do. The coaches understand it, and basketball understand. That's been a while ago, but you don't have. I don't know how many national coach of the years Auburn has ever had in basketball. I know Coach Dye. I don't know. I don't know if that's happened or not, but it doesn't happen. Basketball has always kind of been on a back seat. People love it. Don't get me wrong, but in the South and in the Southeastern Conference, football showed so huge. So Auburn basketball was always kind of nose stuck down, not expecting much because you're going to leave that to the Dukes and the North Carolinas and the UCLAs and the Kansas. But since those 90s and through today, SEC basketball has really grown in popularity, and people are eating it up.
Do,
But
do
it's
you think
still big football, and that's okay.
Do you think
You
this
go.
is the best? You think this is the best the SEC has ever been at basketball? The most engaged, the most, the administrators want to win the most.
I don't know. It was pretty strong back in Rick Pitino days and Nolan Richardson days. You know, geez, I can't say that. Billy Donovan days. It's pretty strong back then too, brother. I don't know about that. I'd say that it's sustaining itself. It's sustaining itself.
You mentioned the Cliff Dwellers, and I'm so glad you did. I grew up watching. I was in kind of my late elementary, middle school, high school years for that era. You mentioned up to 6,000 Cliff Dwellers. Were you guys able to keep the momentum of that after the '99 season? And then I want to ask you about 2003 as well, which was a great
Yeah,
Sweet 16
yeah,
run.
yeah. We sustained it because that 2003 team, that team came close to. We got to the Sweet 16, beat St. Joe's, and beat Wake Forest, and went and played Syracuse in Albany, New York, in their backyard.
Yep.
And actually, that team, we lost to Syracuse by 1. And Syracuse went on to win the national championship. Mm-hmm. If we'd have had 30 more seconds in that game, we would have beat Syracuse, in my opinion. we had the momentum going. We had crawled back from an 18-point deficit. We cut it to 1. And if there'd have been another possession or two, Syracuse they were out of gas. And, it just didn't happen. But, the Cliff Dwellers, they were there till the end. And, it was just special. And those people, I hear from them, quite frequently. I'll run into somebody somewhere in an airport. I got a place down in Florida. I run into people and say, "Hey, I was a Cliff Dweller," and I'm thinking, you don't look that young anymore. But I also know it's been 25 years ago since those days, or 20 years, and so you guys are 40-something years old and making a living. And I remember you as kids that were just having a ball and enjoying college life.
It's so cool. The connection between a coach and the student body. Obviously, Coach Pearl's done a really good job of that.
He's done a great job.
But you had that as well. And I'm glad you mentioned, that 2003 team honestly mirrors more of what kind of Bruce had with that Final Four team. That team didn't have the best regular season. They weren't dominating by 18 points every win, like you did in 99. So I'm glad on our podcast, we always talk about how important the regular season is,
Yeah, that team and Bruce's team they hit their stride at the right time.
Yep.
And I really think that, again, Syracuse won it, and you don't know. We lost by 1 to get to the Final 8, and 30 more seconds, I think we do it. But who knows? We were hot. It was working. I mean, that could have been a national championship team. And you can look back at Bruce's game that they lost, I think, Virginia, and Virginia was very lucky to win. Syracuse was kind of lucky to win. It's just one of those things. March Madness, it's crazy.
I think Marquise Daniels would agree with you. Marquise came on the pod recently, and we were talking to him about that run and how good he was in those games. And I think you're right. That was one of my first memories, was that Syracuse game and being heartbroken as a 13-year-old watching that game.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. We changed our strategy at halftime. They were playing that 2-3 zone, and we put Marquise in the middle and got him the ball, and they couldn't stop him. He was either going to make a play or he'd kick it out to Nate Watson or, some of the other guys. It was he was just about every possession, he was going to score 2 or he was going to get us a 3. And like I said, fell short, but great memory for Auburn basketball. That was a great team, and it was just those 10 years at Auburn, I just absolutely loved. They were great years in my life, but it all worked out. I got to coach another 15 years after doing some television, and I wouldn't be the winningest coach when I retired, or the 9th all time without all the schools. But those 10 years at Auburn were very special. But, where you came from, Cumberland College means a lot to me too. They gave me my start. South Alabama gave me my first Division I job. Clemson gave me the chance to win an ACC championship when nobody thought it could be done, and it still hadn't been done. And then Auburn hadn't done it in 40 years, and we said we were going to do it. We did it. And I think that it went down for a while, but, I'm just very tickled at what Bruce is doing. But I'm glad that he's got people like Marquise, who was on that 2003 team, and a guy like Brian Smith, who was on that 99 team.
Yeah, we've interviewed both of them recently. It's cool that your legacy is still impacting Auburn to this day, and there's been a lot of talk on our own podcast about the 25th anniversary of this 98-99 team. And with that 25th anniversary, other things have been brought up. The tiger stripe jerseys. We would love to see a throwback. I don't know if you own any of those. And then also Beard Ease Memorial. We love the new Auburn Arena, Neville Arena. We think it's a great design. The fans are going nuts. But we would love one throwback in Beard Ease Memorial. I don't know if you have like a specific memory you can lend us that, man, they blew the roof off of Beard Ease, because I would love to talk any administration or former players into having a throwback game there.
Well, I don't know about it. I don't know if you can do that because I don't know if you can do that. But are you asking me about a memory during that time or during the Auburn time or during that year?
Yeah, well, in general, if you have a moment in Beardy's Memorial that you remember is like, wow,
Oh
that
my
crowd was
God.
going nuts. I can't, something.
Well, the biggest memory, because we all know how the Auburn, Alabama game is, but the biggest memory was not the 99 team. I think it was the year before that. I think we had Alabama the year before. I think we beat them 50 points. And I think the score at one time, and you'd have to go look it up, but the place was going nuts. I think it was like 46-12. Auburn beating Alabama in Beardy's. Now you talking about going nuts. We talked about the fact that 99 team beat Alabama 31, 39, 15. The year before that, we beat them at home close to 50 points. And so that was the first, that was one. And I'll tell you, I think one of my first home games, Lance Weems, I remember this. We were playing Arkansas. My first year, we played Arkansas, and that's when Nolan had those great teams. And they were 7th in the country. And they came in, and Lance Weems threw up about 30. And we beat them double digits. And I think I knew that the administration and people said, hey, we're on the right track now. We hadn't seen this in a long time. But just seeing the people, that was the first sellout I remember at Beardy's. And people, they weren't expecting much. I think most of them came to see Arkansas because they'd had such a reputation. But I think that night or that afternoon, I think it started that run that lasted 10 years. And Pat Burke, who played with the Orlando Magic, and Lance Weems, and that particular team, Wes Flanagan, those guys right there, Ray Donald, Chris Davis, all those guys, they were a special part of it. And we went to the NIT the first year, and people were shocked, because we came out of nowhere.
I mean, SEC Coach of the Year that year, right? 95. I mean, beating Arkansas like that, the expectations were so low, that going to the NIT was a worthy of a SEC Coach of the Year.
Well, I didn't remember that. I knew it happened, but no doubt that had to propel what happened that year. Yeah, for sure.
Well, earlier I said you were the second winningest coach in Auburn basketball history, but Bruce Pearl is hot on your tail. He is 13 wins away from tying you up. I don't know if you ever communicate with him or if you think you'll ever be there to pass the torch off to him, but he's coming for you.
He'll get there. He's got too much going. All records are meant to be broken. And, I don't have any, I really don't have any problem with that. I've retired from coaching, and somebody's going, well, Calipari's now the winningest coach. He called me. He called me the night of it. He called and wished me the best. And I said, well, it's yours now. You've got it. Somebody will pass. I won't be ninth forever in winning as coaches, but I'm very proud that those teams at Auburn, because it's part of Auburn's record. It's not my name's on it, but those players that played for me at Auburn, their names.
You're breaking up a little bit right now, but I think it's just a very fortuitous moment that you've retired this year. You might be passing the torch on to the second most winningest coach, to Bruce Pearl. It's the 25th anniversary of the 98-99 team. We're glad to have you on, and we'd love to see you in the arena. I think this would be, I don't know who else to talk to. We know some people with the team, but it feels like hopefully you can clear a schedule maybe at some game later in the year that Auburn can honor you in your retirement.
Well, I think that team is special, and we'll have to see. I'm good. I don't need a farewell tour.
We need it for you. We want to see it.
Okay, well, that's very kind of you. That without question, that's very kind of you. Very kind.
I have a question, Coach. I've two kind of player-driven questions. I appreciate that you've always been a player's coach. You've listed so many of your former players here, and Jackson here loves the block party that a lot of Bruce Pearl's guys have. Walker Kessler obviously was tremendous with the block shots. Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broom continue that now on this year's team. But Kyle Davis, in my mind as a child, Kyle Davis was a
Great shot.
monster blocking shots, and Mamadou Njai as well. I
Yes.
just wanted to give you a chance to talk about those guys.
Well, both of them were what you like you said. Now Kyle was a great shot blocker. Mamadou, that's what propelled him to the NBA. I mean, he is, he didn't score a lot inside, but he ran the floor like a deer, and so did Kyle. They both blocked shots, but they both had a knack for being able to defend without fouling. A lot of guys block shots, but they foul too. And those guys, very rarely came out of the game due to fouls. And, they just had good timing. It's not anything that I taught them. It's a God-given gift. And they brought it, and, they made a name for themselves because what was it? There's the saying was with Mamadou, nobody blocks a shot like Mamadou. And that was fans that did that, put it together. Yeah, that was it. Nobody blocks a shot like Mamadou. That's pretty cool.
That's
pretty
so
cool.
Good. I
think that came from the Cliff Dwellers.
Probably did. Those Cliff Dwellers were a good bunch. We love on this show. I also have a question for you about, you mentioned the choke press. Now, I don't know your career as well, X's and O's, before you got to Auburn. Was that something you brought with you, or was that something that you started implementing with that 98-99 team specifically?
Well, I started pressing at Cumberland College. I'm going to give you a story. In 1973-74, Cumberland College led the nation in scoring at 105 points a game.
Wow.
Okay. Now think about that. There wasn't a three-point shot.
Yep.
Okay. 105 points a game. That's pretty good. But we pressed. We pressed. And I wrote a book that was a bestseller among coaches back in the 70s and 80s called Zone Press Variations for Winning Basketball. And I studied a lot of people to write that book. I studied a lot of people because anything that's written on the game of basketball, for the most part, was passed down. And so I spent time with Denny Crum because he had been with John Wooden. I spent time with Hugh Durham because I graduated from Florida State and he was the coach there. They both utilized the press before other people did. I studied Dean Smith and his run and jump defenses. The guy that gave me my start, Jimmy Earl out of Middle Tennessee State University, he pressed. And I just studied coaching and I developed my own philosophy. And when something works, and it worked at Cumberland College, it gives you confidence. And so I've pressed all my life. And, so anyway, that's how the press developed is through the early years.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
You're a bit of a renaissance man. It's really fun when our guests kind of end up going into our next question. You start talking about writing books. You're a head basketball coach, writing books. And most people, I don't think, know this, but you're a musician. You were part of a famous band in the 1960s called the Villagers. You're retired now. Do you think now that you're retired, you've got time for a Villagers comeback?
Well, for the last 10 years, we've actually gotten together and played a couple of times for charity. We've done that in Florida back home where, people know who we are. With basketball, the only time that I've had to do it is pretty much the month of August because in college coaching, you start hitting the recruiting trail in September. You can work out your players in September. October practice starts. It goes through March. You continue to recruit. I have a little bit of time in May, but now you have summer practice and summer camps in June and July. So if you don't do it in May or August, you can't get it done. And so our band made a point to do that, and we have just had a ball with it, making a comeback, because we recorded out of Muscle Shoals, Alabama, in your state,
Wow.
which is the one of the
Iconic.
mecca, yeah, iconic recording studios. Rick Hall, who is now passed away, he signed us to a contract when
Wow.
we when
Wow.
we
That's
and we had a #1 hit in Montgomery, Alabama, on WBAM.
that's my
We had
hometown.
well WBAM. We had 3 top 10 hits, and in the Southeast, we played all over the South and traveled and played fraternities, and went on stage with Roy Orbison. I've been on stage with Charlie Rich, Temptations, Four Tops, Delbert McClinton, Irma Thomas. I recorded with Etta James. I played a tambourine
Wow.
on one of her records at Muscle Shoals. And ironically, when I went back to Auburn, this is a great story. At Auburn, and
Oh,
I paid
sorry,
up
give
with
us
it.
you broke up just a second and you said it's gonna be a great story. So I have to say, start back over at the beginning of that story because we got to hear it.
All right, where was I when I left off?
You say you played with Etta James and you had a great story.
I've got a great story that uh, that happened when I went to Auburn. Uh, Senator Lowell Barron had a golf tournament up in Scottsboro, Alabama, somewhere up in that area. And I got paired up with a guy, and I asked him what he did. And he said, "I'm in the music industry." And I said, "Well, I used to be in the music industry." He said, "I know. I think that's why they put us together." He said, "I helped produce When a Man Loves a Woman by Percy Sledge." Well, I like to Fell Out, because, my goodness, that was an iconic song. We got to know each other. And then he said, "I want to get you back in the studio." And so after the 99 championship, I went back in the recording studios. We went back to Fame Recording Studios, and David Johnson produced an album, a CD called People Get Ready. It's on iTunes. People can go to the Villagers or Cliff Ellis, and you can take every song that I ever recorded, and it's right out there. And it's gotten play, and it's been on Sirius XM radio and Beach Music and all that stuff. But I was a musician in college, and when I graduated from Florida State, I said that if the song had taken off nationally and I was going to make a lot of money, I'd stay with it. But by the end of that summer, if it hadn't, I'm going right into coaching. And
I gotta say, Coach, you're
well,
winning at you've won at the game of life, in my opinion. You got to choose here if you were gonna be a big recording star in Muscle Shoals or head basketball coach. That's like the absolute dream, you know.
well, I still go back. I still have a special place in my heart for Fame Recording Studios, but also for
Me
David
too.
Johnson. David Johnson, who was my close friend, who's passed away now. And I still go up there and hang out a little bit. I've got some buddies up there, and I did Marty Raven, who was with Shenandoah. He and I did a song called "People Get Ready" together. It's a great song, and it's just a lot of great things. But those are great times and great memories. And when I went into coaching, I didn't tell Rick Hall. He called me in October, and he said, "Cliff, it's time to do another session." And I said, "Rick, our band is no longer." He said, "What?" He said, "Our band is no longer." And he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "I am a 7th and 8th grade basketball coach at Ruckle Junior High School in Niceville, Florida." And he laughed. He
Not
said,
many people turn down Fame Studio.
he laughed, and he said, "You've got to be kidding me. You're going to give this up to be a 7th and 8th grade basketball coach?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I've made that decision that coaching is going to be my career. And I'm going, he said, well, good luck. And of course it worked out pretty good.
Man, that is just incredible. Luckily it did, because man, that would have haunted me. Muscle Shoals is just my parents' favorite. They did their 25th anniversary there. There's a great documentary about it. If people that are listening don't know about it, but man, they've had some amazing music come out of there. I have a whole playlist on my phone from it. So it's just so cool that you got to record there and be the head basketball coach at Auburn.
Well, that's true. And some of the players, Scotty Pullman, some of the players are on that CD. I tell you, there's a song called "If You Want to Hear the Auburn Basketball Team." If you want to hear them,
yes,
you go up. The People Get Ready album, and it's a song called Charlotte.
Say that name of that song one more time. You broke up a little bit there. Oh, nice. We did so good. Now he's frozen. We'll never learn the name of this song because it got frozen.
Charlene, is that what I heard?
Charlene? I can't
believe
believe it completely froze, folks. As soon as he said the name of the song that had the Auburn basketball team on it. Is it coming back? Well, meanwhile, while it's frozen, I'm going to say what I was going to say at the end anyways. Maybe he'll come back here in a second. But we got to get Coach Cliff Ellis in Auburn for the 25th anniversary celebration. And, we lost him completely. But maybe he'll sign back on in a minute. But we've got to get him on the 25th anniversary here to honor that team, to honor the pass-off from Bruce Pearl on that he's 13 wins away from passing Coach Cliff Ellis. And we got to hear these songs. We got to have him perform at halftime, right?
it does feel like time, right? I mean, I know that was not the best ending. There were some feelings involved.
Here he comes. He's coming
but
back.
I would love that. I would love if Jackson, if we could make that one of our things this year.
There you go.
He's back. He's back. What was the name of that song you were saying? That's right where it went off. Right as you said the song, we missed it.
All right. The Auburn basketball team went to Muscle Show. David Johnson, it was his idea. We're going to do this. We're going to do this CD, but he said, let's get the Auburn basketball players on this. And so those guys that were seniors, they came up, Scotty Pullman, Adrian Chillis. I can't remember who all was on it, but the Auburn basketball team is singing backup to a song called Charlena, Charlena. And if you go to iTunes or whatever, you can find that song. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but it's a song called Charlena. And it wasn't one of the songs that took off on the album, but it's the Auburn basketball team. I can tell you that.
All right. We got our Super Bowl shuffle song here for Auburn basketball. But we want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I was telling Matt while you were signed off there for a second, the dream is on the 25th anniversary of this 98-99 team, on the day that Bruce Pearl passes you as the second most winningest coach, after your retirement, we get you in Auburn to honor you, and you play at halftime with your band. That would be the peak moment for Auburn basketball this season. I'm telling you.
Well, I don't think we need to play at halftime. We need to play after it.
After Sky Bar with Coach Cliff Ellis would be killing it.
Well,
I know you might would have done Supper Club, back in your day, but hey, Sky Bar's the new Supper Club, so that's where you'll have to be on this one.
I remember the Supper Club.
Good.
I had to make sure my players didn't hang out there.
Well, we really appreciate the chance to get to honor you, regardless of what Auburn does. Obviously, you could tell we're big fans. We appreciate the work that you did, the memories you gave us, and so many Auburn people. And we congratulate you on your retirement, and just thank you for hanging out with us.
I've enjoyed it. Brings back a lot of memories.
War Eagle coach.